For most of our lives, we've taken aging for granted. One of those things that just happen, like the sun setting or the seasons changing. One day you wake up and realize your hair's turned gray, your back cracks, and your body. It's no longer the ally it once was. And so we say, it's normal, it's just age. But have you ever truly stopped and asked yourself, does it really have to be this way? David Sinclair, one of the most brilliant biologists of our time, has spent his entire life asking that very question. And his answer is surprising. Aging is not inevitable. It's a process that can be slowed down, even reversed. I know it might sound like science fiction, but what he offers is not a magic pill or a lab fantasy. It's an invitation to see life in a completely new way. Imagine, just for a moment, that your body isn't programmed to deteriorate. That aging isn't a sentence, but a communication error inside your cells. An error that, if we understand how it works, we can also correct. Sinclair isn't saying we can become immortal, but he shows us that we can live much longer, and do it in good health, full of energy and clarity, far beyond what we currently call normal. You might be wondering, but why should I care? The truth is, this revolution affects all of us, especially if you're nearing 50 and you've started to feel that something inside is slowly fading. This book, and the discoveries it contains, are like a light turning on at the end of a tunnel we thought was unavoidable, and that light says, it's not too late. Sinclair starts with a truth that is simple yet powerful. Aging is a disease. A disease, yes, not a natural phase of life. And if it's a disease, then it can be treated. It's not just a philosophical provocation. It's a scientific stance that has enormous implications. Because if we change the way we see aging, we also change our entire approach to health, to medicine, to the way we live every single day. Many of us worry about cholesterol, high blood pressure, the risk of Alzheimer's or cancer. But do you know what the greatest risk factor is for all of those things? Age. Aging itself. There's no point in treating the symptoms if we don't address the cause. Sinclair invites us to look at the root of the problem. And you know what makes all of this even more fascinating? Watts. You don't need labs or millions of dollars to start changing things. Some of the most effective strategies for slowing aging are already inside you. Your body is incredibly intelligent. It can heal, regenerate, adapt. It's just that, over time, it forgets how. Our job is to help it remember. And to do that, we have to change the way we live, the way we think, the way we relate to time. You see, the idea that longevity is a luxury for the few is just wrong. Telling Billy. You don't need to be super rich or live in a Swiss clinic. Telling Billy. What you need is knowledge and willingness. Sinclair has dedicated his life to gathering that knowledge. His book is a map, and we can use it to trace a new route, not just to live longer, but to live better. Now, I'm not telling you that you have to become a monk or radically change who you are, but I am telling you that you can care for your future in ways that once seemed unimaginable. That every small gesture, how you eat, how you move, how you think, can flip hidden switches inside you, switches that regulate your energy, your clarity, your strength. The longevity revolution is not only scientific, it's spiritual too, because it forces us to ask a fundamental question. How do we want to live the time we have left? And how willing are we to change today so we can live tomorrow in a body that supports us instead of fighting us? There's something deeply liberating about all this, because it's not just about adding years to life. It's about adding life to those years, about looking at the future not with fear, but with excitement, and above all, about taking back control. Because even though time keeps moving, you get to choose how it moves through you. This is the beginning, an invitation to see aging not as an enemy to fear, but as a language to learn. And if we learn how to speak that language, we can truly rewrite our story. We've all had that moment. You look in the mirror and notice something has changed. Maybe a new wrinkle or a fatigue that doesn't go away, even after a full night's sleep. You tell yourself, it's normal, I'm just getting older. But my friend, pause for a moment. Because maybe what we've been taught isn't the whole truth. Maybe we've accepted too quickly a condition that was never set in stone. In his book, David Sinclair invites us to reflect on a revolutionary truth. Aging is not inevitable. It's programmable. It's modifiable. It's reversible. For centuries, we've thought of the human body as a candle. Once it's lit, it starts to burn, and slowly it wears out. But today, science tells us something else. Our body is more like a dynamic system, an intelligent program, capable of adapting, correcting errors, even regenerating, if only we give it the right conditions. The key lies in how we interpret the process of aging. And this is where Sinclair's information theory of aging comes into play. Put simply, it says, we don't age because we lose genes, but because we lose the instructions on how to use them. Bisizki kasaiki, the chi, it's like a computer. The hard drive is still intact, but the data is corrupted. The software crashes. The instructions that once guided the cells become confused, and that's where decline begins. Our DNA holds all the information we need to stay young and healthy. But over time, what deteriorates is the control system, the epigenome. It's the part that tells the cells what to do, how to behave. Halt. When the epigenome breaks down, the cells forget their identity. A heart cell might start behaving erratically. A skin cell may stop renewing properly. It's not a sudden catastrophe. It's a slow unraveling of order. And that disorder over time is what we call aging. Now think about this. If the problem is a loss of information, then maybe we can restore it. Maybe we can help the body remember how it functioned when it was young. It's a powerful concept, almost spiritual, because it reminds us that inside us, there isn't just the present. There is also a memory of what we once were. And that memory can be reactivated. Sinclair also talks about another silent enemy, DNA damage. Every day, billions of microbreaks strike our genetic code. And our body, extraordinary as it is, spends the day repairing them. But each repair is also a chance for error. Over time, these small imperfections accumulate. It's like a photocopy of a photocopy. At first, everything is clear, but eventually the image becomes more and more blurred. Yet, our body already has the tools to handle this. The problem is, over time we stop using them. Short cassation, ma cassation. Why? Short cassation buzz bia. Because we live in a world that protects us too much. Too much food, too much comfort, too much stability. Short cassation, short cassation. Heck cassation, prixation, short cassation, short cassation, prixation, short cassation, heck cassation, buzz buzz bia. The cells stop being challenged, stop needing to regenerate or defend themselves. It's like a muscle that's never trained. It atrophies. Sinclair calls us to awaken that inner force, to reactivate those longevity genes that are just waiting, silently, for a signal. And that signal, often, comes from good stress. Not the mental stress of a hard day, but biological stress, fasting, physical exertion, cold exposure, short bursts of intense effort. They act like alarms for the body. They say, it's time to respond. Time to regenerate. Do you understand what that means? It means we have enormous room for action. We are not passive victims of an unavoidable process. We are co-creators of our biological destiny. And that, my friend, is one of the most liberating truths we can hear in adult life. Many people reach this age, 40, 50, and feel like they're on a downhill slope. But it doesn't have to be that way. Not if we understand how our body truly works. Not if we start treating time not as a thief, but as an ally to be respected. And you see, this isn't just a biology lesson. It's also a spiritual lesson. Modify Star truly works because it forces us to change perspective. Modify Star truly works. Modify Star truly works to realize that life isn't just a countdown, but a continuous opportunity for evolution. Every day, our cells renew. Every day, we can choose whether to dim the light or turn it back on. Sinclair gives us a new lens. And through that lens, even our daily choices, what we eat, how we move, how we rest, take on new meaning. They're no longer habits. They're acts of healing, of rejuvenation, of respect for the miracle that we are. Aging is not destiny. It's a dialogue, a conversation between the body and the environment. And when we learn to speak that language, we can rewrite the message. We can live better. We can live longer. And most of all, we can live awake. When we talk about living longer, many people immediately think of miracle supplements, advanced therapies, or treatments that are still far off in the future. But the truth, as it often is simpler and deeper. Before we even start thinking about how to reverse aging, we need to learn to recognize the real enemies of our longevity. And they aren't enemies out in the world. They're inside us. Silent, constant, and often ignored. The first of these is DNA damage. Every single day, in every cell of your body, your DNA suffers thousands, actually millions, of small breaks. Radiation, chemicals, even the oxygen you breathe can damage the delicate structure of your genetic information. But don't be alarmed. Your body is a miracle. It has extraordinary repair systems designed to intervene, correct, and protect. The problem is that, over time, these systems get tired. They don't disappear, but they become less precise, slower. So while in youth, every error was corrected almost perfectly, as we age, we begin to accumulate mistakes, small glitches in the code of life. And those mistakes, like the seeds of weeds, grow silently inside us. Then there's a second, even more insidious enemy, chronic inflammation. A word that might sound abstract, but in truth, describes something very real. It's the inner fire that never goes out. When we get hurt or sick, inflammation is the body's natural response. It's like an emergency call to activate the defenses. But today, because of how we live, constantly stressed, undernourished, sedentary, that alarm never turns off. And the fire, once an ally, becomes an enemy. Chronic inflammation eats away at the body from within. It damages organs, confuses the immune system, and creates a fertile ground for diseases we've come to call inevitable: diabetes, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular illness. But they're not inevitable. They're the result of a silent inner war. And then there are the senescent cells, cells that have stopped dividing, stopped renewing, but don't die. They remain there, inert, like wounded soldiers who refuse to leave the battlefield. And while they linger, they release toxic substances, disrupt nearby cells, and contribute to tissue aging. Once, these cells were easily cleared by the immune system. But with age, that system weakens, becomes slower, less attentive, and so these zombie cells accumulate, adding to our physical and cognitive decline. There's another aspect Sinclair points out: the breakdown of communication between cells. Our body is like a great orchestra. To function well, each instrument must be in tune. Each musician must know when to play and when to pause. But with aging, this symphony begins to lose harmony. Cells stop communicating properly. Signals become distorted. Some cells start playing alone, disconnected from the whole. This loss of communication is one of the subtlest and most dangerous signs of aging. Because when cells stop talking to each other, the body stops functioning as a unified system. It begins to fragment. Dangerous signs, azale, and in that fragmentation, disease finds space. Mental confusion, physical weakness. Now listen carefully. I'm not telling you all this to scare you. I'm telling you because knowing the enemy is the first step to defeating it. If you know what's harming your body, then you can begin making conscious choices to protect it, nourish it, heal it. The problem isn't that these enemies exist. The problem is that we don't see them. And yet, they live inside every bad habit, every unbalanced meal, every sleepless night, every day we don't move. The good news, and this is where the beauty of it all lies, is that you don't have to be perfect to start changing. You just need to wake up. Begin. Every step in the direction of awareness is a victory against the rust of habit. Every healthy choice is a spark of youth rekindled within you. And I'll tell you something more. These enemies, if you really look at them, are nothing more than signals, messengers. Del Ashala. They're telling you that your body wants to heal. It wants to renew itself. They're telling you, come home. Come back to that part of you that is ageless, that part that is always ready to regenerate, if only you give it the chance. Sinclair invites us to see aging not as a single event, but as a process that we can influence every day with what we think, with what we do, with how we treat ourselves. We've been raised to believe that after a certain age, we start to lose everything: strength, energy, beauty, clarity. But I'm telling you this, you're not losing anything you can't get back. Maybe in a different form, maybe in a new way, but that vitality you feel slipping away, it can return, not through magic, but through understanding, through presence, through choice. Be kind to yourself, but also be courageous. Look these enemies in the eye. And then, with a calm heart and an awakened spirit, begin to build, one gesture at a time, your own path back to youth. Sometimes we think our body works like a machine. The more you use it, the more it wears down. But the human body is not a mechanical object. It's a living, intelligent system, deeply spiritual in its structure. And within this system, there are mysterious forces, tiny invisible mechanisms working day and night to keep us in balance, to protect us, to keep us young. One of these mechanisms is what David Sinclair calls the sirtuins. Now, maybe you've never heard that word before, but listen closely, because once you know about them, you'll never look at your body the same way again. Sirtuins are proteins, but not just any proteins. They're like silent sentinels, watching over your DNA. When everything is fine, they remain quiet, almost invisible. But when there's stress, when you fast, when you exercise, when you expose your body to a beneficial challenge, the sirtuins activate. And when they do, they begin to repair, restore, rejuvenate. It's as if inside you, there's an entire team of monk healers, ready to act the moment they sense something needs to be restored. But they don't move out of laziness or luxury. They move only when it's necessary, only when they receive the signal that it's time to reignite the flame of life. And here lies one of Sinclair's deepest insights. Sirtuins don't activate with comfort. They activate with challenge. When we overeat, when we're always warm, always sitting, always protected, these proteins fall into a kind of sleep. But when we expose ourselves to moderate fasting, intense exercise, brief physical stress, the sirtuins wake up. You see, the body needs to be tested, just like the soul, not in a destructive way, but in a sacred one. Because in challenge, in limits, in tension, space opens up for renewal. That's why Sinclair speaks so often about hormesis, that fascinating concept which says that a little bit of stress makes the body stronger. It's like a purifying fire, or like spiritual fasting that opens the heart. The right kind of stress, not too much, not chronic, is an act of love toward our organism. But sirtuins alone aren't enough. They need fuel, and that fuel is called NAD+, a vital molecule that allows these proteins to do their work. The problem is that as the years go by, NAD+ levels in the body decline. And when that happens, sirtuins begin to slow down, to lose strength. It's like having an army ready, but without the tools it needs to act. Sinclair has dedicated years of his life to understanding how to restore NAD+, how to bring it back to youthful levels. And he's found that there are natural ways to do it: fasting, cold exposure, deep sleep, and in some cases, using natural molecules like NMN or resveratrol, compounds that stimulate this longevity pathway. Now maybe you're thinking, this sounds too complicated. I'm not a scientist, but you don't have to be. What matters is the spiritual principle behind it. Youth isn't something you buy, it's something you cultivate. Every time you choose movement over stillness, every time you resist eating when you're not truly hungry, every time you step out into the cold instead of staying under a blanket, you're sending a deep message to your body: I'm alive, I'm ready, I want to evolve. And in response, your body activates. It renews, it awakens. The sirtuins get to work, bringing order, cleaning up, protecting your DNA, not through magic, not through miracles, but through the laws of life. You know, many people reach midlife feeling like they're slipping away, like they're losing something. But I'm here to tell you this: you haven't lost anything that can't be reawakened. Oval, the sirtuins are still there. You have them inside you, nomonomim inside you. You've never lost them, Oval, nomonomen sarap, but they just need a gesture from you, a conscious act. They need you to say, I choose to live with intention. And that, dear friend, is the true meaning of Sinclair's work. Not to give us an illusion, but to give us real power. A power that can't be bought in a pharmacy, but is born from discipline, from knowledge, and most of all, from deep connection with your body. Your body is not your enemy. It's a temple, a sacred place. And the sirtuins, they are its priests. They just need you to light the candle. For millennia, humans have looked at aging as an unstoppable force, a kind of biological destiny that leads us slowly toward the end. Little by little, we've resigned ourselves to the idea that to age is to deteriorate. But something has changed. And that something is happening right now. We are living in a unique moment in human history. For the first time, science has begun to unveil the secret codes of aging, and not just to understand them, but to rewrite them. David Sinclair, along with many other visionary scientists, is showing us that what once seemed like science fiction is now real. Let me give you a simple but extraordinary example: the Gokam. Have you ever heard of the Yamanaka factors? Wanseiwaidzinkrits. They are 4 genes discovered by a Japanese scientist, Shinya Yamanaka, and they have the power to reset a cell, bringing it back to its youthful state. Yes, you heard that right. Not just slow aging, not cover it up, reverse it. It's as if we took an old, tired cell and said to it, remember who you are. And it obeys that deep memory and becomes young again. Sinclair has shown that this reset is possible even in living organisms. In his experiments with blind, aging mice, he used the Yamanaka factors, and those mice regained their vision. This is not a metaphor. It's a documented reality. It's as if nature, when given permission, could press restart and begin again from a place of purity and vitality. This is where science and spirituality begin to touch. Because all of this tells us something powerful. Life is not just a linear path. Hasis. It's not just a beginning, a peak, and then a decline. Alsasis. It is circular, regenerative, deeply intelligent, and it's not just about genes. New technologies like CRISPR now allow us to edit DNA with a level of precision that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Today, we can correct mutations, switch off genes that accelerate aging, reactivate the ones that heal and protect. Not in theory, in practice. Yes, these technologies are still young. And no, we shouldn't expect a magic wand just around the corner. But we must be honest with ourselves. The future is already here. And the question is no longer, will we be able to reverse aging? The real question is, What will we do with this possibility? And this, my friend, is where consciousness comes in. Because scientific breakthroughs alone are not enough. We need a new ethics, a new collective maturity. If we can live longer, then we must ask why? For what? To what end? Living to be 100 means nothing if there's no meaning, if there's no love, if there's no growth. Anti-aging technologies aren't just tools. They are mirrors. They confront us with the oldest question in the world. Who do I want to become? Because if I can stay young, then I have no more excuses. There comes a préfa, life is no longer a countdown. There comes a responsibility. And we're not just talking about genes or gene therapy. Vox. We're also talking about big data, artificial intelligence, predictive biotechnology. Vox. Soon we'll have full maps of our health, able to tell us years in advance what risks we're accumulating. And this will allow us not only to treat, but to prevent. To live with a long view, like the wise do, like ancient cultures who listen to the body as if it were a messenger from the spirit. Imagine a future where medicine doesn't arrive after you're sick, but walks beside you every day, in silence, protecting you. A future where we don't wait for collapse, but build health, like building a home, with patience, brick by brick. And you know what's most beautiful? We don't have to wait for the future to begin. Many of the principles that science is confirming today are things you can already do. Controlled fasting, high-intensity movement, deep sleep, stillness, silence. These aren't futuristic technologies. They are ancient tools of healing. And today, thanks to science, we can use them with greater awareness. Sinclair is not a guru. He is a scientist. But his message carries something sacred. The body is designed to live much longer than we think, but we must treat it as an ally, not a machine to be squeezed dry. The change is real. The longevity revolution has begun, and it's not just about living longer. It's about living more awake, more present, more human. If you accept this truth, if you make it your own, everything changes, because you are no longer a leaf falling from the tree. You are a root growing deeper. Living longer is not a dream. It's a real possibility. But it's not a possibility born in laboratories or only in charts and clinical trials. Living longer, living better, begins with what you do every single day, with your habits, with your choices, with that moment when, instead of following the path of comfort, you choose the path of awareness. David Sinclair has shown us that aging is not inevitable, and that within us already exist all the mechanisms needed to fight it. But these mechanisms need a signal. They need you to tell your body, it's time to wake up. And that signal, almost always, comes from how you live. Let's start with food. We live in a world where food is everywhere, always available. But our bodies were not designed for abundance. They were designed for scarcity, for fasting, for pauses. When we don't eat for a certain period, not for days, but for hours, something extraordinary happens. The cells wake up. The sirtuins activate. The body starts to clean itself out, to consume what is damaged, useless, toxic. It's a process that science calls autophagy, but you can think of it as a biological prayer, a moment when the body retreats in silence and renews itself. That's why intermittent fasting is so powerful, not because it's trendy, but because it speaks the ancient language of the body. Skipping a meal now and then, shortening your eating window. These are simple gestures but profound, gestures that say, I trust my body. I let it breathe. Then there's movement. Sedentary living is the subtle poison of our time. We spend hours sitting in offices, on couches, in front of screens. But the body is made to move. And not just to burn calories. It moves to exist, to heal, to live. Physical activity, especially short, intense bursts, is one of the most powerful activators of the longevity genes. You don't need marathons. Just 20 minutes a day of something that makes you feel alive. A run, a brisk walk, Some bodyweight exercises. Every time you move with intention, you are telling your body, I'm not dying, I'm living. Get ready to last. Even cold and heat, when used wisely, can become your allies. Think of a sauna or a cold shower. Those brief, controlled moments of discomfort are like alarm bells for your biological system. They stimulate it, strengthen it, remind it that it can do more. The body is not only nourished by food, it is nourished by rest, silence, light. Deep sleep, for example, is one of the most underrated tools for regeneration. While you sleep, cells repair, the brain detoxifies, the immune system strengthens. And yet, how many of us treat sleep like a luxury? How many of us carry the stress, the noise, the worries of the day into the night? Learn to protect your sleep the way you would protect a child. Create calming rituals before bed. Turn off the blue light. Put down your phone. Breathe. Give thanks. And let go. Because the real anti-aging solution is not found in a pill. It's found in a deep, healing night. Then there's the mind, manas. And here the conversation gets even more subtle. Manas, because every thought you nourish, every emotion you hold, directly influences your body. Anger, fear, anxiety. They are like acids that slowly eat away at your vitality. But here too, you have a choice. You can invite in thoughts of gratitude, of trust, of acceptance. You can change the way you speak to yourself. Longevity is not just a biological fact. It's an act of consciousness. It's saying, I choose to live in alignment with my deeper nature. And that choice shows up in how you wake up, how you eat, how you breathe, how you love. Don't chase perfection. You don't need it. What you need is a direction, an intention, a continuity. Every day is a chance to take one small step, and every step counts. Sinclair isn't telling you, become an athlete. He's telling you, become aware. Because if you know what's good for your body, and you do it, even just a little at a time, your body will respond. It will surprise you. It will thank you. It will guide you. And maybe one day you'll look in the mirror, and you won't just see fewer wrinkles. You'll see more light in your eyes, more presence, more love for life. Because living longer is not just a matter of time. It's a matter of truth. And the truth is, every act of care you offer yourself today is a seed planted for your future. One of the big questions people ask after discovering that aging is not inevitable is this: what can I take to live longer? It's natural. We live in a culture built on quick fixes. A problem, a pill, a pain, a drug. But the truth, as always, is deeper and more subtle. David Sinclair, even as one of the world's top experts in biotechnology and genetics, does not offer us a magic formula. He doesn't sell the illusion of a capsule of youth. Instead, he speaks of smart molecules, nutrients, and supplements that can help the body activate its inner mechanisms of rejuvenation. But, and this is the key point, only when they are supported by a lifestyle that gives them meaning. A supplement is never the foundation. It's a booster, a spark, but you must light the flame. Let's begin with a fascinating compound, resveratrol. It's a polyphenol found in some plants, especially red grapes and wine. It's long been known for its antioxidant properties, but Sinclair discovered that it activates the sirtuins, the longevity proteins. It acts as if telling your body, it's time to protect yourself. Get ready for the challenge. But here's the truth. For resveratrol to work, it must be paired with a metabolic signal. Fasting, exercise, calorie restriction. By itself, it doesn't perform miracles. It's a collaborator, not a savior. It amplifies what you are already doing for your well-being. Then there's another powerful molecule, NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide. It's one of the main precursors for increasing NAD+, the substance cells use to repair, renew, and activate longevity pathways. With age, NAD+ levels drop dramatically, and with them, the body's ability to defend itself against aging declines. According to Sinclair, supplementing NMN can restore those levels and reactivate rejuvenation processes. In his mouse studies, the results were astonishing. Elderly mice regaining energy, clarity, and physical endurance. But again, it's not about how much you take. It's about how wisely you use it. And most of all, about how consistently you integrate it into a truly healthy life. Another interesting compound is metformin. Originally a medication for type 2 diabetes, it has shown in many studies the ability to improve insulin sensitivity, reduce inflammation, and slow down certain aspects of cellular aging. Sinclair himself takes it, but he emphasizes this with great honesty. It's not for everyone. Metformin is a drug. It requires medical supervision. It's not a magic wand, but it can be a valuable ally in specific contexts, when guided by knowledge, not by impatience. There are also other natural supplements: quercetin, pterostilbene, fisetin, CoQ10, omega-3s. Each has antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and protective properties. But here's the important message. It's not the number of substances that makes the difference. It's the quality of your relationship with them. True longevity does not come from a drawer full of pills. It comes from an awake mind, a centered heart, a respected body. Ma says, a supplement can give you an edge, yes. But if you use it to cover up a disordered life, if you think swallowing something is enough to heal, you're just replacing one illusion with another. Sinclair himself is very clear. Supplements work best when your body is already in a state of activation. When you are already stimulating it through fasting, movement, an open mind, conscious breathing, then, yes, a single molecule can do a lot. Because it finds fertile ground, not a desert. And there's another dimension, even subtler: gratitude. Everything you put into your body, whether food or supplement, should be accompanied by awareness, by respect, by an inner gesture. When you take a supplement, take it with presence, not like any other pill, but as a sacred dialogue with your body. Pause, breathe, listen, ask your body, what do you truly need? And then act, not out of habit or fear, but out of love. That is the real purpose of longevity supplements. They are not shortcuts. They are amplifiers of intention. If your intention is clear, bright, and authentic, then every molecule will know exactly where to go. And remember, you're not chasing eternal youth. You're seeking true vitality, the kind that is born from a body that has awakened, and from a spirit that has learned to dance with time without fearing it anymore. When we talk about living longer, the first reaction is often excitement, but then almost immediately, a deeper question arises. What kind of world are we creating? Because longevity is not just a biological issue. It's an ethical issue, a social one, a spiritual one. David Sinclair shows us that science is ready. The tools to slow aging, to reverse certain processes, to extend healthy life, they are already emerging. But the real question now is, are we ready? Are we as a society ready to navigate a world where humans might live to 100, 120, even 150 years in good health? What does that mean for work, for the economy, for relationships, for the environment? Imagine a world where people remain active and productive into their 90s, where you can change careers multiple times, travel, learn, create, for much longer than ever before. It's fascinating, right? But at the same time, it brings with it an enormous responsibility. Because more time also means more choices, more impact, more consequences. And in a world that already struggles to care for its elderly, to ensure dignity for all, to respect the limits of the planet, how do we move into this new reality? Sinclair doesn't offer easy answers, but he invites us to reflect. He says, don't stop at the idea of living longer. Ask yourself, for what? And that's a powerful question, because living longer without direction, without purpose, without deep ethics, can become a kind of prison. It's not the number of years that matters, it's the quality of meaning you put into them. We already live in a world marked by vast inequalities, and one of the most legitimate fears is that longevity technologies will end up in the hands of the wealthy only, that those with more resources will live longer and better, while those with less will be left behind. The risk is that longevity becomes just another privilege instead of a human right. This is a critical point, because it's not just about science, it's about justice, about equity, about compassion. Sinclair knows this, and he emphasizes that many of the most powerful strategies to slow aging are free. Fasting, exercise, cold exposure, sleep, mindful breathing. But it's knowledge that makes the difference. And knowledge must be shared, democratized, brought to every corner of the world. That's why, if you're listening to these words and taking care of your own longevity, you're also taking on a collective responsibility. Because this is not just about your body. Semen Defy. Dal a semen Defy. Mani, it's about your example. The Aiman tuan care of you. Dal a semen Defy. A semen Defy. The culture you create around you. Aiman quan care of you. The values you express through your choices. Aiman care of you. We live in an era where we truly could change the destiny of humanity. Dal a semen Defy. But to do that, we must act, not just as individuals, but as an awakened community. A community that doesn't want to live longer to accumulate more, but to serve better, to care for the earth, to educate, to create beauty. Imagine what we could do if the wisest, most experienced, most life-rich people could stay with us longer, not just to hold on to power, but to lead with humility, to pass down wisdom, to build bridges between generations. This is longevity with meaning. And if extending life becomes just a way to postpone death, then we've missed the point. But if living longer becomes an opportunity to mature more deeply, to love more consciously, to give more freely, then we've found a new path for humanity. Longevity cannot be just a personal privilege. It must become a collective mission, and that requires new choices, new policies, an economy no longer based on consuming, but on preserving, a society that doesn't marginalize the old, but listens to them, that doesn't exploit the young, but guides them. This is the heart of the message. It's not enough to live longer. We must live better, together. And if today you are choosing health, awareness, evolution, then you are also helping to open the way to a different world, not just to extend your life, but to expand life in everything you touch. At this point, after talking about genes, cells, technologies, and habits, you might be asking yourself, and me, where do I fit into all of this? Because yes, we can live longer. It's we can regenerate our bodies, slow aging, eat better, sleep more, move wisely. It's But if inside we remain disconnected, all of that loses its meaning. Longevity without awareness is just a life that stretches without depth. David Sinclair shows us the biological pathways of youth, but if you listen closely, what he's really saying is something much more spiritual. Life can last longer if you learn to live it fully. So what is personal awareness in the context of longevity? It's the ability to look within every day and ask yourself, How am I using the time I've been given? Not in terms of productivity or external accomplishments, but in terms of presence, of truth, of love. You can eat perfectly, but if your mind is filled with judgment, anger, or fear, you're still polluting your system. You can work out every morning, but if you do it with anxiety or guilt, you're just training your ego, not your life. Living longer is meaningless if you don't learn to live more deeply. And to live deeply means to be awake, here, now, inside your body, your thoughts, your emotions. It means knowing why you do what you do, for whom, for what purpose. True longevity doesn't begin with a supplement. It begins with a question. Am I living in alignment with who I truly am? If the answer is yes, then every extra day in your life will be a gift. But if the answer is no, then even living to 100 might just feel like a long delay. That's why awareness is the real medicine. It's what guides you to choose the right food, not out of fear, but out of love. It's what makes you walk, not to burn calories, but to hear the breath of the earth beneath your feet. It's what makes you say no to what drains you and yes to what expands you, even when it's hard. It's also the awareness of death. Yes, that too is part of this path, not as something to fear, but as a silent teacher. Because when you know your time is precious, even if you can extend it, you don't waste it. You don't get lost in the trivial. You don't postpone kindness. You don't close your heart. You understand that every day can be a seed of eternity if lived with true presence. Personal awareness also means accepting your own rhythm. Not everyone ages the same way. And not everyone needs to be a super athlete at 80 or a startup founder at 90. Longevity is not a competition. It's freedom. The freedom to say, I choose to live well, in my way, in my time, honoring who I am, and that is worth more than any number. Another essential aspect is the bond between body and spirit. Not a rhyme. Sinclair speaks to us about biology. Not a rhyme. But if you really listen, every chapter of his thinking is an invitation to rediscover the sacred within the physical, biology. This is not just about cells, biology high. It's about energy, biology high. About presence, about inner listening. Treating your body well is not a selfish act. It's a spiritual one. It's saying, my body is the vehicle of the soul, and I honor it. I eat with respect. I sleep with reverence. I walk with gratitude. Not because I have to, but because I choose to honor the life that flows through me. And perhaps, right here, we find the deepest answer to that original question. Why seek to live longer? Because every moment in which we are fully present is eternal. And so, if we can have more years, more strength, more clarity, we don't do it out of fear of death. We do it to love more deeply, to give more fully, to discover more completely who we are. Conscious longevity is not an escape from aging. It's a return to that part of you that has always been young, always alive, always whole. And if every day, even just for a moment, you connect with that part of you, then you are already living beyond time. We've asked ourselves how we age. We've explored how to slow that process down. We've listened to the voice of science, the wisdom of the body, the power of a conscious mind. Now, a new question stands before us, one greater than all the others. Where are we going? The future of humanity in medicine isn't just a technical matter. It's a question of collective choice. Because today, for the first time in history, we are no longer mere spectators of our biological fate. We are co-creators. David Sinclair shows us a future where treating disease is no longer the core of medicine, because the medicine that's emerging will be predictive, preventative, personalized, and participatory. A medicine that doesn't wait for you to get sick, but walks with you every day to keep your potential alive. It's a radical shift from repairing damage to preventing damage from happening, from treating aging to extending vitality. And all of this will be possible thanks to extraordinary tools, artificial intelligence, real-time monitoring, personalized genomics. But these tools alone are not enough, because the risk is clear. A medicine that becomes too technological can also become inhuman. And when that happens, the future stops being healing and becomes control. That's why innovation must be accompanied by a new consciousness, a new wisdom, a new compassion. The future of medicine must remember that a human being is not just a system to be optimized. We are living presence. We are body, yes, but also heart, relationships, meaning, silence, mystery. The most advanced technologies in the world, without a human vision, become cold instruments. But if that vision exists, if we place science at the service of love, of reverence for life, of the spiritual truth within everybody, then yes, we can change the destiny of our species. Imagine a future where every human being is taught from childhood to care for their health as a sacred act. A future where prevention isn't a strategy, but a culture, where nutrition, movement, breath, rest, and meditation are the first level of medicine, and where cutting-edge science is integrated with the ancient wisdom that has always walked beside us. Imagine hospitals of the future, not as places of pain, but as centers of energy and regeneration. Imagine a healthcare system no longer driven by profit but by dignity. Imagine doctors who are not just technicians of disease, but guides of vitality. This is the world we can build, but only if we stop seeing longevity as a personal achievement and start seeing it as a project for humanity. Because if we live longer, we also have more time to care for each other, more time to build peace, to heal the planet, to pass down wisdom. To pass down wisdom. More time to transform our economies, our politics, our education. And that time must not be wasted. We're not just talking about cells that live longer. We're talking about a new kind of human being. 5. Holv ein Bos de Live, a human who lives with intention. Holz Bos de Live, who acts with presence. 5. I de Live, who ages without resignation. 5 as de Live, I go live. Motivate, who sees the future not as something to fear, but as a work of art to co-create. The medicine of the future will be a mirror. It will reflect what we've become. And so the real question is not, will we live to 120 years? The real question is, will we be worthy of those years? With more time comes more responsibility, not just to our bodies, but to one another, to our children, to our elders, to every form of life. Because the future is not something that happens to us. The future is what we choose every single day. And today, by choosing to live better, more consciously, more in harmony, we are already writing that medicine. We are already walking that path. A path that will not only give us more years, but more meaning. And maybe, when all is said and done, we won't remember how long we lived, but how alive we made life feel. We've spoken about biology, about genes, about sirtuins and NAD+. We've explored the power of fasting, of movement, of a conscious mind, of science advancing faster than the world can keep up. But now, at the end of this journey, one question remains. What is David Sinclair really telling us? What is the message pulsing beneath every page, every data point, every experiment? The message is simple, and at the same time, revolutionary. Aging is not inevitable. It is not a sentence. It is a process. And like any process, it can be understood, influenced, transformed. This doesn't mean we'll live forever, but it does mean we can live longer, healthier, stronger, more fully, with dignity. It means we can slow the decline, and in some cases, even reverse it. It means that the quality of our life is not only written in our genes, it's shaped by what we choose each day. And most of all, it means we are not victims of time. We are co-creators of our biological time. Sinclair invites us to radically rethink everything we've taken for granted. Aging, illness, how we treat our bodies, our future, the future of our children. He calls us not to wait for a miracle cure, but to become active participants in our own longevity, not out of ego, not out of fear of death, but out of love for life, to honor the extraordinary gift of having a body, of being conscious, of being able to evolve. This is the real message. Each of us has the power to extend life and to improve it, through daily choices, through awareness, through discipline, through love. The body wants to live. It wants to heal. It wants to regenerate. Kepiajid. We don't need to force it. We simply need to help it remember how. And so, what once seemed like destiny, growing old, getting sick, fading away, becomes a possibility, a choice, a path. The future Sinclair envisions is not only built with technology, it's built with awakened humanity, with people who don't just want to live longer, but want to live well, live true, live together. That's why real change doesn't begin in a lab. It begins in you, in that quiet choice you make each morning, in that moment when, instead of surrendering to time, you choose to become the keeper of your time, in that simple act where, by treating yourself well, you begin to treat the world well too, because longevity isn't a goal to chase, it's a form of love you practice, a way of walking through time with grace. And now that you know this, the real question isn't how long you'll live. The real question is, how will you use the time that has been given back to you?